being triggered is normal. It is a natural part of life. To bloom beyond perfectionism doesn't mean that you no longer get triggered. It does not. What it means is that you're able to respond rather than react to the triggers so often anymore. You see, when we are emotionally triggered, when we react, so to speak, we are actually experiencing an involuntary response to a past experience in the present moment. And so when you find yourself being triggered, you're not necessarily being triggered by that person, that experience, that kind of thing that just happened. It might actually be just a reminder of a past experience, a past person, a past thing that you didn't heal from, basically. And so that emotional kind of part of your brain, the subconscious mind, is then basically going straight back, all the way back to that time where you got triggered in the first place. And trust me when I say, you might think you know, right? You might think that you know when you got triggered, but very often these triggers got basically ingrained into us, or their reactions to the triggers got ingrained into us at a very, very young age, oftentimes in between our birth and when we were like 7 years old or something, because that is when the subconscious is wide open for habits to be created, emotional reactions to be created. Now, every day you are triggered by different events or interactions that happen. Sometimes they're minor, sometimes they're more extreme, right? It could be a person's tone. It could be when someone's speaking a lot. It could be a situation that reminds you of something in the past, maybe something that made you feel powerless or disrespected, a belief that creates intense emotions within you. All of this can actually, create triggers for you and make you react rather than respond. Rather than habitually then reacting from the subconscious conditioning of how you have reacted before when triggered, it's then really important to learn, to pause, and be compassionate with yourself. And that's when I like to say, nothing. A big part of being able to bloom beyond perfectionism is becoming more and more comfortable with nothing, with silence, with a gap in between moments. So that instead of falling into the pushing, the proving, and the policing, the tendency to overstep boundaries, the tendency to overshare, the tendency to armor up, you allow yourself to sit in that moment in between and say to yourself within, I am safe. Because when you say to yourself, I am safe, then what happens is that your nervous system calms down. So when you feel the intense sensations in your body and racing thoughts happen within your mind, whenever you're feeling triggered by something or someone, stop and tell yourself, I am safe. And it doesn't have to mean that you literally stop and say it out loud or even within you, but that there's this pause where that belief, more so, that I am safe, get to resurface, reminding you that I am safe. And next, you want to be curious, right? So when triggered, your reaction doesn't usually match the actual event. The core emotion that you are experiencing when you're triggered is typically fear. That's why a big part of the fall season within the Bloom Beyond Perfectionism program is actually dedicated to the fall of fear, where it's not necessarily the case that fear is disappearing, because inevitably it's part of life to have that ability to feel fear, but it's about becoming more conscious and aware of how you respond to fear. And so then becoming more conscious and aware of how to respond to triggers that activate that fear within you, that might stop you from taking leaps, from taking risks, from going for something. So ask yourself, what about this situation that is triggering me caused this intense reaction? And, it may take a bit of a practice to be self-aware enough to understand your emotions. It's not necessarily like you're going from totally being disconnected from your emotions when you're in your head a lot overthinking. That's the case when you have perfectionism, to suddenly being totally connected with your body and not overthinking anymore. No. This is a practice. It's a practice to ask yourself, what about this situation, this person, this thing? Is it that causes me to have this intense reaction? Sometimes not even labeling what it is, just sitting with that. And you know what happens then? Oftentimes the answer reveals itself. So take a break. Do not respond, engage, or make any decisions in a triggered state. Pause and allow this emotional energy to just run through your body and focus on your life force, which is deep breaths. Focus on taking some deep breaths, inhaling in and exhaling out. Connecting with your body, because it's from this place that you can begin to respond rather than react. And until you get to this place where responding over reacting becomes a new habit to you, be compassionate with yourself in that journey, that process, and reminding yourself that I am safe. Whether I react or respond, I am safe. There's nothing to push for, prove for, or please for here. I am safe. Even when I'm triggered, even when I react, even when I respond. To bloom beyond perfectionism doesn't mean that you never get triggered anymore. Because the triggers, they will be there. They will come and go. The triggers are going to be there. Why is that? Because the universe is asking you to evolve, asking you to grow, asking you to see yourself and others and everything differently, asking you to begin to respond rather than react, asking you to come to a deeper connection with love for self, love for others, love for all things. And the only way for the universe to do that is by presenting to you different triggers in different circumstances, in different paths, on different journeys, that you go on with different people, when you have different experiences, the universe is presenting to you these different triggers to see, okay, so how are you going to respond now? Very often you might have things, patterns, cycles repeat themselves in different clothing, so to speak, to see if you can see through the triggers here, to see that the triggers keep on repeating themselves here. This is interesting. That's where the curiosity comes in. Can you get curious about these triggers? Can you get curious about these cycles and patterns repeating themselves so that you can learn and grow and evolve and become even more compassionate and loving towards yourself and others? This is the journey of you blooming beyond perfectionism. I invite you to join the Bloom Beyond tribe. You can go to bloombeyond.com/apply to apply to join this beautiful community of sunflowers, which are free guests, and bloomers, which are paid clients of the Bloom Beyond Perfectionism program and Bloom Beyond Mastermind, for instance, where basically we're all committed to go from reacting to responding, but being compassionate with ourselves in that process. That process of confronting the triggers with peace, with a welcome, rather than, oh, please don't come here, right? So instead of trying to avoid triggers altogether, becoming more conscious of how you respond rather than react emotionally to them. And the only way to go about this is by looking at your subconscious way of dealing with things, dealing with people, dealing with circumstances, especially when things are out of your control, especially when you're in the face of the unknown, because that is oftentimes when you get the most triggered, isn't it? That's when it really pays off to be able to bloom beyond perfectionism. So you can come into the Bloom Beyond tribe and we can get clear on your current and desired situation when it comes to this, so that you can begin to actually truly respond over react. Go to bloombeyond.com/apply to apply, and I might see you on the other side. Stay bright, brave, and balanced.